You're listening to
Catholic Sprouts,
the daily podcast for Catholic kids that strives to plant seeds of faith. Hey there, Sprouts. Today is Friday, July 31st, 2020. Today is also the feast day of St. Ignatius of Loyola. Now, St. Ignatius is a very interesting saint. He lived during the 1500s in Spain, and when he was alive, it was the time of castles and knights. And St. Ignatius loved action. In fact, he really didn't have much time for God or religion because he was so busy out proving himself as the bravest, most valiant knight. He was very successful in battle and a very handsome young man. But then, one day, while he and his army were fighting the French, he was terribly wounded. A cannonball hit him in the leg and basically destroyed his leg. His Spanish army lost that battle, but he was so respected by the French that he was fighting that the French carried St. Ignatius all the way back home to his family castle. But that is where the real struggle began for St. Ignatius. He was forced to lay in bed for months and wait for his leg to heal. And it was so boring. After all, he was used to action and fun. So while he lay there, he asked his family members if they could at least bring him something entertaining to read. He hoped that they would bring him romance novels or stories about wars and battles. But all they brought him instead were some stories about the saints and the Holy Bible. Ugh. He was so disappointed. How boring. And yet he was stuck in that bed and he had nothing else to do. So eventually he broke down and he started to read the lives of the saints. And as he read, something within him changed. As he read, he realized that these men and women who were saints, that they were doing something different with their lives than he had been doing with his. They seemed to be living for something bigger, more meaningful. And in the end, they were doing something so much bigger and more meaningful than he ever did on the battlefield. They were living for God. They were giving their life for love of God. It was there that St. Ignatius had a total conversion, and he realized that he wanted to do this. He wanted to give everything to God. He wanted to spend his life in the most valuable way possible. So when his leg was finally healed, St. Ignatius got up from that bed and he went to a shrine to Mary. He knelt there praying for several days. And when he got up, he had made a commitment to give his whole life to God. And it was there that he left behind his knight's armor and his swords. But it wasn't an easy road. St. Ignatius wanted to go on to seminary to be a priest, but at the time you had to speak Latin to be a priest, and he had never bothered to learn Latin or really to study at all. So St. Ignatius had to go back to school, back to the very beginning, and he was forced to sit in a classroom with young boys. Now, if you're in first or second or third grade, can you imagine if a person your dad's age was suddenly in your class learning the same things that you're learning? That's what St. Ignatius did. He was so determined to give his whole life to God that he didn't even mind how embarrassing it was. He went back, he learned Latin, he studied hard, he was ordained a priest, and he was determined to really make a difference in this world. And kind of in the same way that he had when he was a knight. He found some other close friends that were also just determined to give their whole life to God, and they were determined to go wherever they were needed. In the end, St. Ignatius founded an order called the Jesuits that is still with us today. He has also left behind some incredible teachings that still help us all walk toward holiness. Now, Sprouts, I know this week we have been talking about the seventh commandment, thou shalt not kill. And I know I have given you a lot to talk about and to think about. So today I want you to simply just stay with this story of St. Ignatius. St. Ignatius realized that he was spending his life in a way that was full of action and excitement, but it was not the best way to spend his life. In fact, he was wasting his life. He wanted instead to give it all to God, and that through giving it all to God, it could really be the best way to live his life. And so, Sprouts, I want you to reflect on that and to really ask God in your heart what your calling might be. How is God asking you to give your whole life to God? And you probably won't have an answer to that right now, but this is a question we can continually ask and ask God to slowly reveal this answer to us bit by bit, so that like St. Ignatius, we can truly go and do God's work in this world and win souls for Him. That's it for Catholic Sprouts today. We'll be back tomorrow, but until then, continue to grow in your faith and truly sprout into the beautiful creation that God created you to be. Just one more thing, if you are looking for some fun indoor coloring activities during these hot dog days of summer, we encourage you to go and check out our resource library. We have lots of things in there we're adding constantly, and it's completely free. Simply check out the notes for this podcast episode.